Welcome to another edition of News Bites here on Daily World Television. My name is Cal Korff and I'm your host. In Germany, just in time for the election season, German Chancellor Angela Merkel is working hand in hand with Facebook. They have developed a filter which they claim will help separate fact from fiction and flag what is popularly known as fake news. Working with a private company that has been contracted and of course will be paid lots of money, the company is called Corrective. It has a series of tools which, according to Facebook, will help flag fake news. The short version of how it works is this, and its legitimacy and accuracy and fidelity are very questionable. Basically, readers can flag a story as fake. Then this company will supposedly do the due diligence to check it and then make notes accordingly so that when people encounter the story, they see whether it is controversial, is in dispute, may have been flagged as fake, and if there's no marking at all, it's considered to be real or legitimate. Merkel is worried for two reasons about so-called fake news. One is the recent successful attempt by Russia to go ahead and cyber attack or hack the emails from the Democratic National Party. The myth is that they also hacked the emails from John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's former campaign chairman. That claim is not true. It never has been true. Here's why. The very definition of the word hack means to break into something. That is not what happened with Podesta's email. What happened is he was phished, P-H-I-S-H-E-D. That's a whole different issue entirely. The short version of what took place is that Podesta's email account received a phony letter, supposedly from Google, asking Podesta to change his email for security purposes. For some reason, you can ask Podesta what happened or his IT genius, they fell for that letter. They changed the password, and because it was embedded with malware, it went ahead and sent that password straight back to Russia. They didn't need to hack into anything. Hacking means to essentially break into something, and they didn't do that. The password was freely given by Podesta when it was changed. Russia picked up on it. Then they simply entered it and were able to do whatever they wanted to, and eventually arranged for those documents to get into the possession of WikiLeaks. So there was no hacking. It's called phishing, which is when you impersonate something or pretend you're something and you're really not on the internet. It's a classic scam. It's been going on for many, many years. Shame on Podesta's campaign for being stupid enough, let's be blunt about the issue, to fall for it. Now, regarding the issue of fake news, as Daily World has reported, and I'm one of the writers who has written some of those pieces, the problem is that the wolves are guarding the hen house. And what happens is that the chickens start to disappear. And they're only safe when the wolves are full. But the wolves get hungry over time. The Washington Post, which is part of a small group of self-appointed truth seekers and fact checkers, has been guilty, especially in the last few weeks, of spreading at least two fake news stories that we know of. Perhaps the most infamous one, spread recently not by the Washington Post and not by the New York Times for once, but by CNN and other entities, has been this phony Russian Trump dossier. Merkel is also worried for another reason other than Russia perhaps planting fake stories that might influence the election. This has to do with the resurgence of the far right and extremist movements in Germany. Now, if there's any person who's responsible directly and wholly for this phenomenon, it is ironically Angela Merkel. Had she bothered to manage the immigration influx into Germany of over 1 million so-called war refugees, if she had done that responsibly rather than illogically, the German people would not be as upset as they are. Since Merkel did not manage this program at all responsibly, which is very unusual for Germans. German society is a society that prides itself on a concept called Ordnung, or order. This is one of several reasons why it is that in Germany today, on its Autobahn highway, there are no speed limits. There are no speed limits because people still follow the law. They follow Ordnung. They follow order. Speed limits are not necessary. And yes, it is safe to drive. I've driven at speeds very fast in Germany in the Autobahns. And never in my life have I ever seen so many people drive so fast, so safely. It's amazing to see, and it proves it can be done. The Germans are known for being a very organized, orderly society and culture as a whole. Therefore, when Angela Merkel made a point to mismanage the immigration crisis, it of course put German society not only at risk, now we're talking about the economy and the public health and safety of the country, but there were terrible events that happened. Enough or many of these immigrants, we don't know the total percentage, started committing crimes. Over a Christmas weekend in what turned out to be Cologne, Germany, some 100 women were raped by Muslim immigrants. So, German society, German voters are upset as they ramp up for their final stretch of the election coming over the next few months. Angela Merkel's party is in serious trouble. She has announced that she is running for re-election to a fourth term as chancellor, but her opponents keep getting more popular, and they are far-right extremist parties which are anti-immigration and, of course, like to clamp down on some freedoms, and they're very nationalistic parties. And some people say that they remind some Germans of what used to be the Nazi Party in 1933. Well, that is a gross exaggeration. The fact is that some of these parties and far-right entities are absolutely racist and hate-driven. While it is highly unlikely that another Adolf Hitler could rise to power in Germany, it wouldn't take something as bad as a Hitler to throw the country into chaos. Independent of Germany, which is one of the founding tentpoles or pillars of the European Union along with France, the EU as a whole is in serious trouble ever since the British voted to leave it. That process is now underway. It will take a few years, and Angela Merkel has to be and is one of the main forces to trying to keep what is left of the EU together. In France, an election that's coming up worries her greatly because whoever is going to be the next president of France, it is a choice in voters' minds between what are only far-right candidates. And the reason that far-right candidates are suddenly popular in France is because of Islamic terrorism, mismanagement of the economy, and the fact that so-called socialism, once again, as history has proven, just doesn't work. France's current president, François Hollande, doesn't even bother or is not going to bother running for re-election. He's at least that smart. So this may mean that should Angela Merkel win re-election for a fourth term as Chancellor of Germany, she will be the only major political figure left from the old guard, since everyone from Barack Obama to Cameron of the UK, who is now out of office, to Hollande, who's not even going to run again. That leaves only Merkel, and her future is not set at this point political-wise. So she hopes that this move with Facebook to help stem the tide of so-called fake news will help turn her fortunes around, or at least prevent them from being damaged further.